Oh, hello. Welcome back to the Biotopes. Thanks for coming in today. So you just caught me here. I am recording some of the water parameters in this sump system. Now this system behind me here you're looking at is altogether probably about 155 gallon system. I've got two 75s plus a 10 gallon sump, and there's probably 5 gallons in that 10 gallon sump. Today is sump day, and I'm going to run you guys through my 3 different sump systems. Each of them are a little bit different. Show you guys a little bit how they're set up, some of them are built, and show you how we clean them out. This system right here, it's housing some growing cichlids, some plecos. There's lots of fish. Is running under 10 nitrates. pH in the system is about 7.2. It is a little bit warm. We're here in the beginning of June in northern Ohio, and this just rated out at about 84.3 degrees, a little too hot. I'm not running a heater in here this time of year. I just have a dehumidifier. This room is well insulated, but it is holding a lot of heat. So I'm going to do a water change on this system today and try to add some cold water to the system and bring it down a little bit. So thanks again for stopping in, and if you're interested in freshwater sumps, this is the episode for you, so thanks for stopping by. Okay, so let's give you guys an overview of the system. If you haven't seen my channel before, they've got a 75 on top. This is Costa Rican biotope. Down here is a northern Peruvian biotope, specifically the upper Amazon. And this is in the San Carlos River Basin in Costa Rica. And then my sump, we'll get a better look, is down here below. So the first thing I gotta do on these systems, what I have is these overflows. And as a part of this overflow, you guys can see I've got some sponge that is covering an elbow, a barbed elbow. And water overflows over and through that sponge is on there to keep out fish and any as little debris as possible, and it overflows down to the sump. Well, when we get that clogged up, what we'll get is the water up here will raise. I don't know if you guys can tell, but we've got a little bit of water that's reached the top of the lid over here. That signals to me that overflow needs cleaned out and changed. And also, you'll notice in the sump down here, the water is a little bit low. You see that black line here, right there on the right. That's kind of the normal water level, and that gets a little bit low. That tells me that the overflow sponge is clogged, and we'll replace that. And here's a clean sponge. Some of these are coarse, some of these are kind of medium. It's just got a hole in one end, and just change it out. So we'll change it out and I'll show you the difference. Okay, so I changed the overflow, and this particular overflow I think is in e-shops. I think they sell them for like pumps. But once that is installed, then you can notice the water level is lower. There's no water on the lid, and that's a good sign. On the tank above this, you'll see the water level is just starting to crest that cross brace of this tank. Now, why is that? That's because these darn cichlids pull up val and kabamba every day, and it just gets stuck as the overflow around that sponge. So I'm going to change it out. Again, that's an e-shops. It's kind of a medium density. I'm going to change it with one of the Aquarium Co-op. This is the small super coarse sponge. That fits pretty good once you get it stretched out. I'm going to change that. The reason I noticed actually first is if we take a look down here at the sump, that water level is low. See, it's below that line. That tells me, that kind of gave me a heads up where we're having issues, and that's the issue. So let's get up and change that sponge, and then we'll take a look here at how the water level changes. So we're back up top here. I'm on the ladder. I'm going to take this lid off. This is just some polycarbonate sheets that I cut to fit. I'm just going to set that off to the side here. And what I like to do is take some just forceps and start to, pull any debris. We'll put that in here. Any pieces that have kind of been chewed up by the cichlids. Get that in. Let's get this sponge out so it doesn't get dirty. And here's another piece of valve. This valve is good. I'm going to plant this guy while I'm at it. And let's hope that that lasts more than a day. Get some of this other debris out. I mean, they just get after this stuff, man. I just cannot. Somebody's got a trick about this. It'd be great. I know Co-op makes those planters. Thought about doing that. Here's some Kambamba. I'm going to plant this together. Kind of get it in there at an angle, and that's just sand and gravel. It's great for planting. Just gosh darn it, doesn't last very long. Okay, any more scragglies? There we go. And this Kambamba usually gets beat up pretty good. Okay, so now all I do is I take this off, and I kind of let that overflow. Put it in my little handy dandy specimen container. Let's let that overflow for a little bit. Make sure no fish are around. And then I'll take our new sponge and I'll work it around that barb. You can see that, and if you guys can tell, there's that barbed elbow. And this small Aquarium Co-op sponge, the opening's pretty tight, so you got to kind of stretch it out over time, but it does fit over there nicely. And then I'm just going to replace the lid. Okay, and donezo. Now let's take a look. Let's take a look at this sump. And there you go. The water level is now just about at our line. So it's a good kind of indicator on where we are with the water level in the aquariums. So I'm gonna get a towel here and wipe up a little bit. And just clean that glass up as much as we can. Okay, so, all right, let's take a look here at our first sump. Let me get this ladder out of the way. Don't need this anymore. All right, now sump time. So let's take a look at what this is. This is a standard 10-gallon tank. And I've got one, let me take the lid off here. Again, it's just a polycarbonate sheet that I just kind of cut to kind of fit the openings on the sump. Let me get some light back on here. But there's an overflow in the back. That hose on the left is the overflow. Let me think. That is the overflow from the top tank. the 75 on top. I'm going to try to get this, sorry. You can kind of see that overflow there. She's got a bulkhead and a little screen on it. This overflow, the second overflow is overflow from the bottom tank. And this is just a black piece of plastic that was kind of fabricated to hold that hose down. And what I've got built here is just a wet-dry trickle filter. And this is just one of those kind of storage bins with 3 drawers. I took the top off, and you can see I've got some filter floss and some sponge, some bio rings, and then the third is some more bio rings. This bottom level is fully submerged. This level here is not. It's trickling on there, and obviously the media here is kind of catching any debris. I've got a ton of sponge down in here, old sponge. This is some granular peat. There's sponge in the back. It's kind of this, by the way, this drawer system is setting on some egg crate. I've got a piece of egg crate go along this side wall. And then I've got another egg crate that's kind of going like a T that this, you can kind of see it there in the back, that this trickle system is setting on. This next sponge here is some of the really coarse, I forget what kind of sponge what it's called, but it's plastic. You can find this online a couple different places. It's about an 1.5 inch thick. Again, just creating some more surface area. And then I've got 2 pumps here that are pulling the water as the water trickles down from the overflows. Gravity's trickling it down. I drilled holes, by the way, in the bottom of each of these drawers. So there's holes drilled there, there's holes drilled there, and there's holes drilled in the bottom. So the water is getting pulled down and then across by these pumps. Now, both of these pumps do not have kind of valves on them to control the pressure, so I had to install a couple of flow valves so I can, regulate the flow to even it up, because you want the overflow from the tanks coming down equal with the outflow. And each outflow is in the corner there, and then you can see up there. You want to get that kind of balanced, essentially. So that's one 10-gallon custom sump. Again, I drilled 1 hole in it as that kind of flows out to that bulkhead, and then I've got another hose just kind of coming down from the back of the bottom tank. So that is the first one. So let me put the top on, and I'll show you our second setup. So here is the second 10-gallon sump. Again, now this one doesn't have a light, so I'm going to try to add some light for us. I've got an overflow, a bulkhead here. This is coming from the bottom tank. Same kind of similar setup as before. Through the bulkhead, I've got a little screen. Now this is set up a very, I guess, poor example of kind of a baffle system. So all I did is I took polycarbonate sheets. Here's one here, and I wedged it in. I cut it super tight to the tank and wedged it in to create kind of a wall. Now, obviously, it's not watertight, but it does restrict some flow and force flow through the baffles. I put some of that egg crate, wedged that in with, again, some of that really coarse black plastic porette sponge, I think it's called, some fine filter floss. I do have another hose for the top tank that there's no fish in there yet, so that's for a future. So the water's pulled down here. This next baffle is kind of all the way to the ground, or at the bottom of the tank, and was supposed to be overflowing over top of this, but it's just getting pulled through somewhere. I've got another set of egg crate and a bag of bio-rings. Another baffle that forces the water, so to speak, under. And then another baffle here that is supposed to force the water over top, but it doesn't. It just pulls it through the cracks on the side. There's no silicone. There's no adhesive at all. It's just wedged in there really tight. And then I've got two pumps here. Only this near pump is running, and you can see the water's low. That's kind of as high as I would want the water to be in here to not create any kind of overflow or spillage if there was a power outage. And on this side, you can see the intake from this pump. Let me get some light. See if I can get you guys in there. So here's the intake on this one pump. You can see it's just below the water level. And what I'll probably do is just put a line just below this current level to signify that when it gets that low to change the filter or add water. This tank is not showing signs of any kind of high water level. I don't see the bracing. I don't see the lid. I'm not getting any kind of like water level up on the lid on the top. So again, these systems are all kind of, you gotta trial and error it, and you gotta figure out what works for your system. So this is a poor man's attempt at a baffled sump using a 10-gallon tank and polycarbonate sheets. So it's not working as designed, but it is working. It's pulling water down and across through media, and that's really all you need in whatever setup you have. All right, let's check out our last sump. So our third and final sump, this is the only manufactured sump, and this was given to me by Josh Cook, a good friend at Lorain County Aquarium Society, a president in fact, and it is just it's a sea reef, and it is just a wet dry trickle filter. This trickles in from both tanks, although the only tank that's going right now is this top tank. This is empty still. But it's just trickling in. I've got some fine filter floss that looks like it's going to need changing. A bunch of bio balls. It trickles through, creating great oxygen onto a plate of egg crate. And then it's pulled across. Get you a better look here. There is a built-in baffle here. And there we go. It's pulled across against some of this really coarse plastic porous sponge. I've got a little baffle with some polycarbonate sheeting. In this particular sump, there are a couple of brackets that you can wedge that into, so it does hold it. But anyway, it's just pulled underneath this baffle, you can kind of see, and then up and around and through this porous sponge, and then this, I think this pump right here, is it Nexia, is the current pump that's working, and yeah, pumps it right up. Comes out over here on the right. This overflow is drilled in the middle. You kind of see the sponge back there. I'll show you on the top. There's the sponge on the barbed elbow overflow. And the bad thing about this sump is that it would not fit in the stand after the stand was in place. So I had to essentially place the sump, and then put the stand and tanks over top. So if for some reason I've ever got to take this sump out, I'm either going to have to cut the sump out or dismantle the tanks. So again, you know, not perfect. It's a working fish room. It is working great right now, and there's, you know, this is an acrylic sump, by the way, and this thing should last for a very, very, very long time. So, yeah, that is the plumbing underneath. I've got a release valve there, so I can take that apart, lift up this plate, and get into that floss and change that, or anything I need to. So that are my 3 freshwater sumps. This one is a manufactured wet dry. This one is a custom kind of half-assed baffle sump. And then this is a 10-gallon DIY trickle filter. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I'm gonna leave you guys with a little view of our new South Johnstone River in Eastern Australia biotope that is in the process of being built. Let you guys watch that as we head out, and thanks so much for tuning in to Biotopes, and we'll see you guys real soon.